I was 33 and had a 6-week-old baby when I was diagnosed, and before that I was bowling along doing what I do, which is mosaics and teaching a little bit, and then had this new baby and a bit of a blow to get this diagnosis. And really the next sort of 12 or so years I was relatively well. I had another baby as well, but the worry was quite all-consuming because I knew that at some point things would go downhill and I would have a bone marrow transplant, almost certainly. And it was, you know, when was that going to happen? So it's like this kind of shadow all the time, couldn't get away from it, that, you know, and regular blood tests was in really good hands, but it's just like, you know, are they going to tell me, you know, I go for next consultation, are they going to say, oh, things aren't looking right? You know, when's that going to be? So that was the tough one, because I was actually relatively well for a long time. Basically, it was a routine blood test at my local haematology clinic, and it was a locum doctor who perhaps was taking a fresh view on things, I don't know, but he just said, I think things aren't quite right and you need a review. So I had a review which involved coming up to see Claire Harrison, who was wonderful because you just know that you're in the best hands of somebody who really knows their stuff. And she said that that things were changing, that it was becoming aggressive and that there were more blasts, I think that's what it was, and that I needed to look at my options for a bone marrow transplant, and that was what she advised that I do. But the time frame was really down to me, which I found a little bit disconcerting, that it was kind of down to me to schedule it in around what worked in family life. And then I had this really lucky opportunity, which is a very expensive trial drug, ruxolitinib, which I was on, and that was really good. I mean, it was like magic, because by that time my spleen was very large and it literally disappeared pretty much. And that was probably about a year, and that was when I was sort of doing my preparation for the bone marrow transplant. I mentioned about going for gold, about this kind of idea of seeing it as being an athlete training for my big event. So that's what I was doing. I was sort of seeing a nutritionist and looking after myself, what I ate, and just really being the best I could in preparation for this big thing, which was in May 2014. And my daughters, who were 11 and 14 at the time, moved in with my sister, so I didn't have to worry about them. I knew they'd be very happy there. And I went into the isolation for a month, and I went in armed with a lot of music and audiobooks, but also exercises to do with breathing and relaxation and visualization, which actually I kind of used the time to just almost get into a bubble. I didn't have to think about anyone else except myself, and just sort of coming through the treatment and getting well. And so I really internalised, and I wrote about my whole experience, and I just used all these techniques to try and, you know, get through it, because it is very gruelling, for sure. But I did my sort of Pilates stretches every day and put the music on, and just tried to, you know, to get through it really. And I think hard as it was being in isolation, it was actually harder coming out, because of the sort of coming out of this little safety bubble into the germy outside world. And then after that I was in a hospital flat for 4 or 5 weeks, down right by the hospital, very lucky to be in that, with my husband and sister kind of cocks and box with me. And you know, daily visits to the hospital, and then this program of walking. I just decided to kind of walk myself to recovery, so I walked every day, discovered Bristol. Some days it was 10 minutes, some days it was 2 hours, but just got out walking, whatever really, whatever the weather. And in fact, it was really hot, it was a heat wave. And I was completely covered from head to toe, like something from a sort of Agatha Christie's 1930s kind of, you know, literally covered with sun cream and scarves and glasses, just because you can't go in the sun after having had that treatment. So I was, yeah, that's very odd, but kept walking. That first year is very long and it goes on forever, because the day you have the transplant is day 0, and then everything is day +1, day +20, day +60, so on. So that first year, the days just seem to go on forever, and you kind of think, am I ever going to be well? But then after that, that was quite a turning point that year, and then I've just really got back into the swim of ordinary life, and I'm really, really busy. You know, I've got teenagers and run a business of mosaics, and I also teach. I work with creatively with people with mental health, enduring mental health issues and drug and alcohol addiction, and believe very passionately about, you know, creativity and its powers for well-being, and it's certainly helped me as well. And yeah, so I'm very back into life, but still really looking after myself and resting up.